Hello and welcome to our live podcast episode on spirituality and well-being. I'm Kat Bazilko, spiritual medium and healer, and I have Melanie Stevens with me.
Hello, I'm Melanie Stevens and I am a spiritual teacher.
So as usual, we tend to do these talks or discussions on different spiritual topics and also well-being topics that I do from time to time live on our YouTube channel. So we welcome people to ask any questions at the end if they are watching live with us, or ask questions at the end in the comments. Let us know if you'd like us to cover any other topic. And today we wanted to continue on our most recent topic on card readings, so Oracle, Tarot, Angel cards. In the first part, we talked mostly about what the difference is between different between different card readings, or just readings in general. If you go for a psychic reading, so-called, or someone who calls themselves a reader, let's say. And we just kind of wanted to continue this week by maybe giving you some examples of what questions you can ask when you come for a reading, what to maybe expect during a session, and also just to let you guys know what is it that we offer, myself and Mel. So I thought we could maybe start by just having a chat on how to choose a reader, maybe that you want, if you're thinking about receiving a reading from someone, how to choose a reader, maybe what's the difference, because I think maybe sometimes you might think of searching. I think most of us are searching online these days, and it's like, well, do I search for tarot reader? Do I search for psychic? I mean, kind of what to look out for, and maybe what to expect during a session. How would you approach that, Mel, if you were to look for a reading? Obviously, you do readings yourself, but I don't know. Maybe there was a time when you didn't.
Yeah, and now if I want a reading, I've got loads of people I know who to ask because I know who does different types of readings. But when I first started having readings, I had more mediumship readings than tarot or oracle, but only because I didn't know what a tarot reading was. And then when I did, I found somebody to provide those readings for me. So when you start out, it can feel overwhelming. There are a lot of people out there offering readings. First of all, you need to establish what type of reading you want, and then my recommendation would be to find somebody who has been recommended by somebody else who's had a reading with them. And I think recommendations and referrals are really important. If you don't know anybody that does readings, then just get onto Google and have a look, but check somebody's reviews, read what people are saying about them. Some people put reviews on their website, some people have reviews on Google, some people have reviews on Facebook, and everybody tends to have a preference, so it's worth just having a look around. But first and foremost, what are you looking for? Are you looking for guidance in your life now? In which case a psychic reading would be very valuable. So that could be tarot, oracle, angel cards. That will give you guidance. Now, the guidance, where the guidance is coming from, that kind of gives you that indication of what type of reading. If you particularly want guidance from a loved one that's in spirit, if you say, my mum's in spirit and I really want to know what she would think about what I'm planning to do, then you need to see a medium for a mediumship reading. If you just want some guidance on your life and you don't really mind where it comes from, just somebody that's got your highest good in mind, then you can have a tarot, oracle, or angel reading. Kat will touch on angel readings because that's bringing in that higher perspective and that love and guidance from the angelic realm. And that depends on what you resonate with and what you feel drawn to. So it's very much going with your gut when it comes to having a reading and what you feel, where you feel you need that guidance from. But that's the difference. Mediumship readings will bring in guidance from your loved ones and evidence that they're okay and that they've survived the physical death. Tarot, oracle, and angel card readings are providing guidance for your highest good to help you on your journey here in this lifetime. That's probably the simplest explanation I can give
Mm.
the different types of reading. Is there anything else you would add there, Kat, in terms of angel card readings and that type of high guidance,
Mm.
high level guidance?
Yeah, so I think it kind of comes down to the reader themselves as to what they want to offer, and maybe not just what they want to offer, but who they are and how they like what their work focuses on. Because then it is represented by what they offer, um, through their services. And so, as you said, when you go for some sort of advice on your current life, so-called like, very, let's say, physical kind of focus, you have a question, career, relationships, I don't know, friendships, something that's on your mind that you're just not, maybe you're a bit confused, you don't have clarity, and you don't know what decision to make, then I think the very simple thing to do would be to choose or to search for a card reader. And like you said, whether it's tarot, oracle reader, angel card reader, really doesn't matter. Um, the if Which doesn't mean that if you went for mediumship that they wouldn't say exactly what your heart desires to find out, because when we connect to our loved ones, often, I mean, they know everything about us pretty much, because there is no barrier. And so very often whatever you come in, I think, to a reading like that without any expectation or questions, and yet you receive something of value that you can really take away. And as I said, maybe depending on the reader themselves, I think I personally like to get to know the readers first. I also haven't had a chance to, what did you say about the, because you were having mediumship readings, and then once you found out what tarot is, then you kind of started going for the tarot readings. And I think I was the same. I also started with mediumship, and mediumship readings were very, very helpful for me and very healing. I found that they are, very healing, and they touch on the subject, on something in your life that is actually very important to your heart at the time, because sometimes there might be some blind spots that we don't see in our life. We're missing something, and we receive that information, that guidance, and healing words that will put us back on track, or heal our hearts, or bring some sort of soothing to our soul, let's say. But then and I didn't know of angel cards or angel card readers, really, like what is the difference, until I started learning about angels myself. And then I understood what an angel card reading would be more like. And so I felt more drawn to doing angel card readings. However, I personally haven't found the kind of angel card reader that offers services that I do. So, so I would really love to have a reading from someone, but yeah, like at least locally or online, if I look, apart from the people who were practicing their own readings within the course that I was taking. But otherwise, I actually don't know anyone. So it's a very interesting thing. But what I wanted to say is, I think with, so that's why it just kind of depends maybe on the type of work that the particular reader does, because you might often see that a particular reader that you find, they most likely will have some sort of other services on their website. If you go on their Facebook page and they have, they talk about different subjects or particular subjects, like there's certain focus that each of us have, and we all want to provide you with guidance to your life. So it's almost like when you're choosing who to go to. Sometimes maybe it doesn't even matter if, what they call themselves. I'm a tarot reader, I'm an angel card reader, whatever, because it's, you always find the person that's right for you by the energy that they exude, and the energy they exude would be obviously through the offerings and what they talk about, what they are all about. And then if you feel some resonance with them or you like their work, it's like it doesn't matter what they call themselves, if that makes sense. If there's someone that you like and you really feel drawn to having a session with them, then just go for it. We don't have to necessarily try and figure it out sort of intellectually, on a level of what kind of a card reading it is that I need.
Yeah, and it is confusing. I did a blog about it a little while ago because psychic readings, intuitive readings, card readings, tarot readings, it's like, what's the difference? And I think that one of the simplest ways of describing the difference in readings is to start with what is psychic, what is mediumship, and that's quite a big indicator of the type of reading you're going to get.
Well, you're
A
cutting out
psychic.
just a little bit, Mel.
Oh, am I? Oh, sorry. How's that now?
Oh, I
Is that
think we're
okay
back.
now?
I don't know. 'Cause, yeah,
Okay.
I think we disappeared for like a second. Um,
Oh, how
but we're back
bizarre.
now. I
We're
think
back
it's
now.
just
Okay.
connection.
Okay. If I cut out again, wave at me and I'll go out and come back in.
Okay.
Is
I
this
think it was both of us actually, because
oh, right.
um our video has gone black for like 2 seconds.
Wow.
No.
No. Psychic attack. Okay, hopefully.
Or just spirit around being like,
Entities of
oh,
God.
hello.
Let's cleanse the space, raise the vibe. We're okay. Okay, if I cut out again, let me know, and we'll I don't know, we'll
Yeah.
go off and come back on, both of us or something. But yeah, I think understanding the difference, getting really confused with readings and what reading do I need, and do I need a psychic, do I need an intuitive, do I need a tarot reader, do I need a medium, what do I need? One of the fundamental things to understand is the difference between what a psychic does and what a medium does. Um, all mediums are psychic, that's how they start. But psychics aren't always mediums. A psychic will read another person. So when you're psychic, you can tune into the energy field of another person and read what's happening in their field. When the guidance comes through, that's coming through from their spirit guides. Now, that's the mediumship part. So that's when you're channeling that higher wisdom and connecting to a greater source. But initially, when you're having a psychic reading, the psychic is reading your energy, your aura, and they're picking up on how you're feeling, what's happening in your life, what's just happened, and what's just coming in. And we can get all of that from somebody's energy field. If they then switch to channeled guidance, that's when they're bringing it in mediumistically. But generally speaking, when you go to see a medium, they will bring through your loved ones in spirit, because a lot of people want a mediumship reading because they're looking for that evidence that the person or the animal that's passed that they miss and they're grieving has survived physical death and are living somewhere else. And that is an evidential mediumship reading, where the medium will tune into your family member and they will bring, or a pet, they'll bring forward evidence that they've got that person with them. And they'll say they used to do this, they look like this is what they did for a living. The purpose of a mediumship reading in that regard, evidential mediumship, is to bring healing, like Kat was saying earlier, and comfort, so that you know that your loved one is okay. Now, the purpose of a psychic reading is for guidance in your life now. It's very much about what you need to hear, what's happening. Not all psychics work mediumistically. So if you go to a psychic and say, I want you to give me a psychic reading and I want to bring through my mum, they might not be able to do that. You might need to go to a medium. And also, I think what's important to note when you're going to a medium is to state, are you looking for evidence that your loved one has survived? Is this like quite new to you and you just want to know how it works and that they're safe? Or have you already had plenty of evidence that your loved ones are okay, but you want to hear their knowledge and their wisdom and their guidance? And make that really clear to the medium when you go for a reading, because a lot of mediums will assume that you want that confirmation that your loved one's okay. If you've had loads of readings and you say, yeah, I know that, I know they've survived. I'm okay with that. I want guidance. Just make sure that's really clear when you go for the reading, that it's actually their wisdom that you want to tap into now, not the evidence that they've survived.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that's a very good distinction to just always keep in mind, between maybe just those two type of readers, medium or more psychic. Yeah, so I thought we could maybe just give a little bit of information on what it is that both of us offer. If, especially if someone maybe doesn't know us, I know some people that listen to our podcast and join us on our weekly live readings that we do might have a clue about what it is that we do. But for those that might be catching this some other time, separate to following us on any other socials, I do focus on angel readings, currently. Now, as you might see on the screen, I call myself a spiritual medium and healer because the readings that I facilitate, although I use angel cards, I use them as a tool to facilitate a reading that is coming through an inspiration and guidance from the angelic realm. So that's always my intention, that any guidance that comes through is for the highest good of the person that comes to me and is exactly what they need to hear at this time. So, for that reason, I don't necessarily require people to come to me with a very specific question, because if they don't have a specific question but they feel a little bit lost maybe in life, or lacking clarity in something, or they feel like they maybe lost themselves, maybe they feel a little bit overwhelmed by life in general, or just not sure what their purpose in life is in general as well, looking for meaning, then I do have spreads that I use to kind of, let's say, clear it up and give you an idea of what it is that the angels see in you. It's a very uplifting, inspiring kind of reading that will point to your soul's journey, or your human journey, your soul journey in this human life, and will most likely highlight maybe things that you haven't celebrated within yourself, haven't really noticed about yourself that much, because you were too caught up in, life's expectations, and we're trying to reach these expectations of whatever they are, and we might feel maybe that we're failing. But from our soul's point of view, we're definitely not failing. We're just learning and trying to build our path based on what it is that our soul has decided to do in this lifetime. So I'm very focused on our soul's journey. Um, and so if you were to come for a reading with me without a particular question, I'm just going to tell you what I see is happening right now and what the angels want you to know about your life right now, basically, and kind of build you up a little bit, and point to the things that are really going well, and maybe where they came from, why things are the way they are. So it kind of depends on what length of the reading that you go for. If it was, because I have the 20-minute option, which is quite short, it's still pretty good time, but it would be a little bit more focused. You can ask a question if you have a very specific question. You can definitely ask in a 20-minute session, and then we just keep it very focused for that question or area of your life. And 20 minutes will probably go by pretty fast, but it will, excuse me, it will cover what you came for. However, if you have a little bit more of a need to just receive that guidance, loving guidance, then 45 minutes at least, or an hour, because then we really dive into your life. So I would have a look at what's happening currently in your life, how you're feeling, where you're going, and how you're evolving as a human, as a soul, in this life, and also a little bit about your family and friend situation, your relationships, your career slash life purpose, so that we have a nice overview. And oftentimes, when you have a bit of a longer reading, then it will probably spark some more questions, because if you, at some point when you come in, you might think, I'm not sure what I'm asking about. But because we start bringing a few things up, it might spark a question. Then you might want to be, oh, okay, can we look a little bit further into this? Because that's actually something that I'm struggling with the most. And because I'm very interested and focused on sort of, I suppose you could say, educating or maybe reminding people of the fact that we are souls living a human experience. And I always like to put that focus back to our onto our readings. I have started offering, so my special offer right now is for a 45-minute reading, and I offer an extra free soul's purpose reading based on your astrological chart, which would be written up. So we wouldn't talk about it during the session. I would just write it up, and it would give you a little bit of an idea of maybe why things are happening the way they are happening, and why maybe you struggle in the way that you might be struggling in life, or even what is your so-called true north in life. So yeah, so I currently have that on offer. I don't know how long that will be up there, but if for any reason you miss it, because it won't be there forever, I do want to just mention that I do have the monthly prize draw that I just started recently, and I've added a lot more options on there now. One of which is that Soul's Purpose reading 30-minute. So you could be a winner in a month, and then you can choose that as your prize. So yeah, so that's about as much as I can, I think, say about the readings that I offer. How about you, Mel?
Okay, so I provide tarot card readings. I learned the tarot traditionally, so I've memorized all the cards. That basically means the multiple meanings of every card in the 78 card deck of the tarot, because I was interested in learning how many other people learn. I really enjoyed it, but I do mix that now with my own meanings that I've come up with over the years, and I mix that in with my own intuition. So I have my own system for reading with the tarot. As a tarot reader, I read psychically. I will tune into the energy of the person I'm reading for, and I will establish what's happening in their lives, what might be happening under the surface unconsciously that the person isn't fully aware of. Maybe their mind is trying to tell them to do something, and their mind saying, yeah, this is a great idea, and their intuition is saying, no, it's not. And they get in that horrible conflict moment when they're like, my body seems to be telling me that I shouldn't be doing this, but my head's telling me I should. I will be able to tune into what your intuition is telling you, which might conflict with what your head's telling you. So we sort of take a deep dive into an area of your life where you need clarity, or where you're trying to make a decision and you can't make one, and you've got that horrible like head gut conflict, and you're just confused and overwhelmed. That's when I can help. That's what I really enjoy doing. I love doing readings where we really deep dive into a situation which is really muddy and confusing. So I work psychically when I read with the tarot, but what I do sometimes do, depending on if I'm drawn to, is sort of sit back from the tarot, and I ask coaching questions to try and uncover things that might be going on under the surface. But I also very often hear things that don't come from me. I believe this is coming from the person I'm reading for, their spirit guides, and I will channel that information through. And if something comes into my head and I feel like I need to say it, then I trust that that's coming from a higher source. So I predominantly work psychically, but I do channel information that comes through from a higher source for the highest good of who I'm reading for. That's how I conduct my readings. I'm also venturing into teaching people how to read using their intuition, and this can be tarot or oracle cards. I've got a brand new workshop on my website that teaches the basics of card reading. If you go to www.melanie-stevens.com/workshops, that will take you directly to the workshops. It does require a sign up, but subscription is completely free and gives you access to that workshop and others in pendulum dowsing and working with spirit guides. I've got a handful on there, and that gets added to every month as well. So subscription is free and gives you access to that intuitive card reading workshop that's on the website. But in addition to that, I've got a couple of blogs that explain those differences between the different types of reading, that teach you some useful questions to ask when you're having a tarot reading to be able to get the best sort of results. And I'm just writing a course, a detailed course in how to read tarot and oracle cards using your intuition. So that will develop you as a psychic. And that's the course I'm working on at the moment, which should be available. Ooh, should I stick a deadline on this and put some pressure on myself? I reckon end of July it should be available by. And that will be hosted on Udemy.
I'm just writing down because I thought there's a point to make. I thought it would be nice to maybe let people know how to approach a reading to make it the best experience you can. And that's irrelevant of what kind of reading you receive, but I think, well, yeah, let me just stop there. It's irrelevant of what, is it a psychic, is it a mediumistic reading that you're going for. It is really, really important to be open to whatever comes through. Of course, you can have a question. Obviously, you most likely have a question when you come in for a reading, but trying to remove the expectations of what will come through will make the reading a lot more helpful and sort of, I think, easier for yourself as the one who's receiving a reading and the person who's reading for you, because we work in the realm of energy. We are all energy, we all do that, but especially when you come to someone who specifically works with energy, whether it's your energy, the energy of spirit, whatever you exude with your energy will have an effect on the whole session. So if you come in, for instance, expecting certain results, whether it's from a card reading, maybe you're just going because you think, oh, I need them to tell me this and this because I want this particular thing to happen that way. So how can I get there? Because I intellectually or within myself think that this is the best solution. So I just need to know what to do. And then you go and have a reading, let's say with Mel, and Tarot says, well, this is actually not the best direction for you. And then, you might be very unhappy about that and defensive in some way because that's not what you wanted to hear. It's important to remember that the guidance that comes through is, as we mentioned, for the highest good for you. So we might have, or you might have an idea that something should go a certain way, but it turns out actually maybe it isn't the best solution for you. And it's the same thing when it comes to mediumistic readings. If you are going for a mediumship reading and you're expecting the medium to connect with a particular loved one, let's say your mom, your dad, and you're not open for any other options, then the medium will feel the energy. It creates a lot of blocks, and that's again psychic or mediumistic. It can create a lot of blocks for the reader themselves because they can feel your resistance to what's coming through. And when there is resistance, then the energy, the information can't flow as freely as it would if you were just open to hear whatever comes. So our attitude, our energy, you can, translate it into attitude really is are you open to hear whatever comes through and then just take it. It might not make that much sense sometimes to you at the beginning when you're listening to the reading, but oftentimes when you then come home and maybe reflect a little bit, and then it might spark some inspiration or might bring some clarification, then you'll know that it was actually right.
And I think that's important. There's a couple of aspects there that it's going to be really useful to touch on. Having an open mind to what happens, and definitely that one with going to see a medium and really and I've been this person, I've really wanted to hear from a certain person. And very often they do come through right at the end. Like usually they will still come through, but sometimes they might not. If somebody's been crossed over to spirit not very long, sometimes you're not ready to hear their guidance, or to hear from them. I've seen that happen as well before with people. In fact, one person I know who was quite skeptical. I'm not criticizing him for that. It's perfectly normal, human. We are naturally quite skeptical. He was coming along to the spiritualist church and he wasn't really believing in it. And he wanted, in fact, my ear's just gone funny just as I've said that. He wasn't quite believing in it, and he wanted to hear from his wife who had passed. Now, he got a message from mum, maybe, and that started to make him go, oh, that was quite accurate. Maybe there's something in this. Next time he came and got a message, it was from dad. Next time he came, it was from his aunt. And eventually his wife came through. And I said, that will be for a reason. Perhaps that you weren't fully believing in it. And your wife was like, I'm going to wait until you've had a bit more evidence from other people first before I come through. And then you convince yourself it wasn't really me, because he was still grieving. And because he was grieving, his energy might have been blocking her from coming through as well, which is perfectly normal. And it's no one's fault. Nobody's to blame for that. It's just how we process grief. So I think that's really important. And a lot of mediums will say, look, I don't know who's going to come through. I will just open the channel. I can put out a thought that you want to speak to that person. But if someone else comes through, I don't want to like shove them out the way, because there's a reason. There's always a reason for whoever comes through to come through. But I think also a really useful point to touch on is free will. That, if you go for a reading and you're open to what comes through and you're guided to do something because it looks like it's going to be a really beneficial journey, but you're not ready to take that journey, you don't have to take that journey. The guidance isn't telling you what you should do. The guidance is just saying, this is what I'm getting from the spiritual realms, but it's ultimately up to you. And if the spiritual realms are telling you you're in a toxic relationship, it would be good for you to leave it, but you're not at the point where you're ready to, then don't. And until you feel like, okay, now I feel like this is the time, because the only person that's responsible for your life is you. And whatever guidance you get is wonderfully helpful, but ultimately, if you're not quite sure, if you're not ready, you've got free will 100% of the time, and you can always choose your own journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very good point. And sometimes when you receive a reading, I think I kind of said that some details might not make sense to you at the start until you go home, and then you realize, oh, that's what it was. I say that because I was the kind of sitter or person receiving. I've noticed that I'm not the best when it comes to receiving a reading, because a lot of things that come through might be in our so-called blind spot, as I said before, or something that we don't consciously think about, because although it sits in our energy, we don't, it's just there. We're just being it, whatever it is, but we might be consciously thinking about other things. So when I go for a reading, and sometimes I think it was mediumship the very first time when I was having this experience, that the reader mentioned quite a few things that were actually relevant to me, but I didn't get it because it wasn't within my immediate conscious awareness, let's say, until afterwards. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's what this person meant. And I felt really bad, because during the reading I would be like, I don't want to say, oh no, I don't get it, because I know that I just right now it's just not coming to me. And then after I go away, I just think, oh, that's what it was. I get it now. Um, so it can happen quite easily. Um, I mean, I think that's the beauty of readings, really, because we don't realize how much of the unconscious really drives our life. So we might be coming in with a particular question because we think this is what will fix something, let's say, or what I need to hear. And then it turns out actually there's so much unconscious driving your actions right now in your life that you're not even realizing. And only when that's picked up by the reader, you can then make a conscious decision to change it, and change your life's direction, or whatever it is that you've received the guidance for. So if something doesn't really make sense at first, that's okay. Just take it, write it down, I think many readers do either record the readings or write things down. You can take some notes, and things will come to you. They really will.
I think that's why we have a reading in the first place, isn't it? Because we don't consciously know. And therefore, having a reading, we're not probably going to say, yes, I absolutely understand everything that you're saying. We need to go away and sit with it, reflect on it, make some notes, read them back, put it to one side, go back to it later. I always take copious notes when I have a reading because I want to look at them and then walk away and then look at them and then sleep on it. And I look back on my mediumship readings from years ago. I've kept all of them because I love to watch how they've unfolded, but also to recognize the guidance that was coming through 2 or 3 years ago that I wasn't that sure about at the time, actually how important that guidance was when you reflect and look back on it. And a lot of readers will get that. They'll get somebody saying, oh, I'm not sure, or I'm not sure about that, but that's okay. There's nothing to feel bad about, but you do need that time to go away and reflect. And I've had the last couple of readings I've done for people, in fact more than twice, but I can remember distinctly hearing people saying to me, your reading, you've just said to me everything that my unconscious has been trying to tell me, and I was blocking it, and I it's like you're in my head, but you're not in my conscious mind. It's like
Yeah.
you're deep within my brain, and you've just pulled everything up and given it to me in words that I can understand. But if I
Mm.
hadn't had the reading, I would still be scratching my head going, why am I feeling unsure about this? What's going on? Because we can get in our own way, and we can be so consciously trying to find the answers that we're actually blocking ourselves more and more and more by consciously striving to get to the answers. And when you go to somebody completely impartial who's got no emotion around what you're asking about, they can just instantly tap in and get that clarity for you. And we can drive
Yes.
ourselves mad by overthinking. I'm guilty as sin, I overthink all the time. That's why I keep asking you to do readings for me. I get in the way. It's like, oh, Kat, can you help?
Yeah, I know. It's just it happens, and I think that's the thing. It's like, even for the readers, I think we already talked about it, and you do the same. It's difficult to do reading for yourself. Like, sometimes there are days when I really feel I'm centered, I'm open, I don't have this, let's say, nagging analytical mind coming in right now. So I will pull some cards. And when I'm in that state, which doesn't happen very often, okay, it does happen sometimes, but and then, especially when there's nothing urgent happening in my life, I'm just open to receive anything, then usually, yeah, it's actually quite nice.
Mm,
And I can understand the messages and what they're telling me, and I'm open to receive them. But otherwise, when it comes to lack of clarity, or like you said, that it's something deep there in the brain. It's telling people to, that there's something wrong, but you can't put words into it. That's what I kind of explained as you're just being, you're unconscious, because you just be. You can't like quantify it, or like sometimes even call it or name it, until someone else does it for you. And often happens with cards. That's why cards are just so amazing, I think, because there are so many messages that are a bit more that are received, but by our conscious self, because we're looking at it with our eyes, and then it comes up to the surface. So you're just being all these things, and you just, it takes a lot of work to really tap into what that side of us is telling us. It's a process, and it's just so helpful to have someone there that can help us decipher what it is that it's telling us.
yeah, and that takes practice, getting out of your own way. And the
Mm.
more you can, if there's one tip I could give people for any spiritual development, whether you're learning to be a medium, whether you're developing psychically, whether you want to use your own intuition to bring messages for yourself through cards, through symbolism, through anything, is meditation. Just taking that time to be present and silence the mind and the thoughts. If I stop working and just sit down and have a pen and a piece of paper in front of me, and I just say, right, I want to connect with my business. I want to know from my business perspective, what does it need from me? and almost communicate with my business, I allow my mind to go blank. I need to give myself a little bit of time to really, really relax. And then ideas and thoughts and inspiration and creativity just suddenly flows really rapidly. And I end up writing down loads and loads of things. Then I end up having loads of work to do because I give myself loads of tasks. And I thought, oh God, I've got to actually do it all now. But I have those creative moments and that inspiration when I'm relaxed, when I've meditated for just a few minutes, maybe with a crystal, just to just go into that quiet space. And if I do that before I pull cards for myself, I get much better results than if I just go straight in frantically demanding the tarot give me all the answers, because then it's not going to, and I'll just get cards like the Hermit that basically is my guide telling me to just go and meditate, Mal, go and meditate.
Yeah.
So, I love how they do that.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Just one thing popped in my mind. It's actually not necessarily related to card reading, but I don't know. It's just I just wanted to mention because we did have a podcast on dreams episode, and I just thought to give people an idea that our dreams are basically where our unconscious speaks to us. So if we, you know, if we're interested in listening to it, then it would be good to maybe start writing them down and try. Now that's also a little bit of a process, so I'm not going to get into it right now. But just paying attention. I think just starting to pay attention on what even the dreams are, and most of them will not make sense. Okay, but if you just start writing them down, just to give the permission for your unconscious to speak to you a little bit louder, because once you let yourself listen to yourself more, you give yourself permission, you're interested, then your unconscious will start speaking to you a little bit louder, and then eventually it might bring a lot of insight, ideas, and kind of like interpretation, I suppose, of what that unconscious is actually trying to tell you during like your waking life. You might be able to tap into it a little bit more. I'm kind of relating back to what you said about the lady that you were reading for, who said that unconsciously she kind of knew, but she couldn't, put her finger on it. But I feel that this kind of feeling and the clarity from that can become a little bit louder when you do pay more attention, give yourself the permission to pay more attention through dreams, for instance. And just by writing them down, it tells your psyche that you know, you are listening to it. Yeah, so I don't know, unless there's anything else that you wanted to mention, say around readings or how to. I think we covered the what sort of attitude energy to come into a reading, how to choose a reader, what different readings both of us offer. Um,
I think the only other good thing actually to mention, I think we've covered pretty much everything, but is the type of question to ask and
all
the
right, yeah.
phrasing, which is quite important. And you will get help with this. If someone comes to me for a reading and they ask me something, I might say to them, I'm going to rephrase that because you're not going to get the best answer from the tarot with those words. So you will often be guided by the reader, but and also just touching on ethics as well, I think might be important, because we all readers, I've been asked many times, particularly with love readings, is my ex-partner still thinking about me? Am I going to get back together with my ex? Is my partner cheating on me? Now, we can answer those questions. Psychics can delve into everything, but it's not ethical to go into other people's energy to tell somebody else what they're thinking, what they're doing, because it's really not for us to spy on people. So that's not to say we can't help, but I would rephrase the wording in that situation. So if somebody said to me, look, I've had my heart broken, And I want to know if there's any chance of us getting back together. Now I can look at that. I can look at, okay, what's the future probability of this rekindling? What I won't then do is say, oh, your ex is seeing someone else and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing the other. But I can then ask, what can you do to heal yourself from this so that you can move forward? And I can get the energy around the situation if this is something that potentially could have legs in the future, because sometimes people do split up and they get back together. So there's always that possibility. But we try not to spy on people energetically, really. So you might, when you go and see a reader, be asked to just slightly rephrase the question you're asking. And I think it is important as readers that we do explain that, just to have good morals about what you're doing when you have a reading. And very often you'll get readers suggesting that you'll use wording like, what do I need to know about the situation with my ex-partner for my highest good? Or what do I need to know about this conflict situation I've got with somebody I'm working with in order to be able to reach a conclusion? So you can bring other people into your reading, but not going into their energy, if you like. You're sort of bringing it, you're looking at the bigger picture. I think that's the key thing with a reading, is you want to really look at that bigger picture. What's going on here? Why is this unfolding like it's unfolding? What's the lesson I'm here to learn? And how can I break this? If it's a repetitive cycle, how can I stop this happening? How can I stop attracting people that keep cheating on me? How can I stop choosing the wrong job? How can I break this cycle? What is the lesson I need to learn? So we kind of take a step back and view the bigger picture. And we need to have the right wording of the question in order to get that bigger picture answer.
Yes, very true. And sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to know what question to ask, but then that's why you have the reader there, and they'll be able to do that for you, because as shown by other examples, we often just don't know what it is that we don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know. And having someone's point of view who's completely unrelated and emotionally unattached to your circumstance, it will bring that clarity, and they'll know. And that's where I think often maybe the difference between readers might come in, because I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are all kinds of readers, and they can do all kinds of reading for you. They will have their own standards, ethically, morally. So like you said, it is possible, but I wouldn't advise on doing that, because you might receive information, but then what are you going to do with it, really? Like, how is that really serving you in your life to know what the other person has going on in their life? I mean, it will probably feed your ego, and you might feel a certain way, but it's not going to really bring any sort of um, I don't know, direction, guidance for your highest good that will actually lead you towards a more fulfilling life and happy life. It's just an information. So it's best to just focus on ourselves, because we're all masters of our own lives, and our attitude and our actions, and really bring forward the or attract the circumstances in which we find ourselves. So if we don't want to repeat certain patterns, maybe we do want to build that happy relationship with that particular person, then oftentimes we just need to look inwards and see what's happening there, to see if there's anything that you can change, you can do um, before, instead of finding out what the other person is doing. So yeah, and I think that's actually kind of maybe an obvious thing now for people who are probably listening to this, because if anyone is listening to this conversation, will most likely be aware of most of the things that we're talking about. But I wrote a little note about media and films and TV programs, of how they tend to depict readers.
Mm.
So we might be a little bit afraid, or not sure whether we want to go to a reader, because usually I think if when we watch TV or movies that have a character in there of a medium, let's say for instance, then they usually, like the Ghost movie, right? Very famous. We probably have the idea of a medium being possessed by the spirits around them, and it might look a little bit scary. Also, I suppose, I mean, these are all very popular movies and they're fun to watch, but really they do kind of present some sort of or create some sort of reality. Now, it's not actual reality, but it's just a made up reality of how we might imagine the spirit world to look like, or a reader to behave like. And a lot of readers would have they look very mysterious, and they're like, when you go into a dark room and they have a crystal ball and they're just like gazing into your future or whatever. And then the ghosts probably are scary and, unpredictable. And I mean, that's all just drama, sensationalism in TV that happens in regards to any topic of life, I think you could think of. The movie will most likely make it more drama driven, more of a sensation, because that's what feeds our human interest mostly. If we receive something shocking, if it's loving and nice and comfortable, then as sad as it might sound, probably not as many people will be watching it, right? It's all about the money and how profitable a certain creative endeavor is when it comes to like movies and such. I know, and I'm sure there are many very a little bit more, let's say, reality based programs and movies, but I don't hear about them. Like, it's not easy to find them, you know. So I would, sometimes it takes a little while for us to just forget about all the things that we watched on TV and just go and have an experience by yourself on your own, and then you'll see that there's nothing scary. Also, I think the one thing that comes to my mind is when I started learning about mediumship, and I was reading about the history of mediumship, and I think I was just putting it into Google, mediumship something, and you have all of these like pictures pop up, especially if it's Google, because the Wikipedia will be coming up quite a bit. And I had all of these, like, this information on, that's written by someone who's not a medium. It's just a bit of a dry, let's say, explanation of the origins. And you have pictures, because it obviously goes so far back, at least 100 years now, that it started being documented, right? When we started having photography, and we were able to capture things. But the photography wasn't great. It wasn't the quality that it is these days. Beautiful, colorful pictures, they were mostly very dark, so black and white, or like kind of brownish, and the pictures that I found were of these mediums who were doing physical mediumship, and they would look like really scary. Do you know which ones I mean? When they, they're where they would, whether it was about the tables that were moving, and it was usually it's scary looking picture, like, because of the shading, the colors that were available. You're not there, so you're just looking at this picture that just looks really spooky, you know and then it just stays in you. And if you've never experienced a reader in real life, then you wouldn't know any better. Like, I didn't, you know
I think personal experience, therefore, really speaks for a lot, doesn't it? I mean, I've been sat in mediumship development circles for years, and I've done table tipping, which is where the table moves, and it does happen, but it doesn't happen in the way you think it does. We're not all sat around chanting in the dark. We just sat in fact, most of the time we're having a bit of a laugh, and because we want to raise the vibration, we're having a bit of a giggle, and it's fun. It's good fun to do things like that and communicate with people. And we're all developing, so we know how to bring people through and talk to them anyway. So yeah, it's a bit more light-hearted, I think, than how it's depicted.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
it's respectful, but it's fun and it's joyful. And if you go to a spiritualist church, at the beginning of the service, certainly the ones I've been to a couple, the intention is to raise the energy of the room. So we put loud music on, well, not really loud, but fun, lively music on. Everyone's encouraged to clap along or sing. I've been past a tambourine before where we've all been banging the tambourines and just and having a bit of a giggle and taking the mickey out of each other to raise the vibration before the service starts, because that's actually provides a better connection for the medium. We're not sat there all somber looking, dressed in black. It's not like that. It's usually cakes. That's why I go. It's actually really good fun. And I think if people went to a spiritualist church, they would find it's quite different to the traditional image of a church. It's quite good fun. And if you go to an evening of clairvoyance or a demonstration of clairvoyance, you might be surprised. You might have your mind changed on what you perceive it to be about because of the media and the film industry and the things that we've read, and probably how that sort of thing was considered in years gone by to be dark and mysterious, and the people that were able to connect in were probably playing on that as well. Whereas nowadays, your average medium, you bump into the supermarket, they're just they've just developed something that we've all got the ability to develop, and they've stuck at it because it does take a while. They've got a lot of determination and perseverance. That's all it is. They're not special.
Yeah, exactly. And you might actually find that when you go to a spiritualist church or to a group, or to a medium for a reading, then the energy is actually very uplifting and loving, because that's the spirit's energy. It's not the scary energy. You actually find out that you feel very heard, cared for, loved. Yeah, and not scared at all.
No, it's good fun. It's a good night out. It's good fun. I think I'd recommend it to everybody that hasn't tried it at least once, to just go and see what it's like.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there should be a spiritualist church, hopefully somewhere close by where you live. Obviously, I don't know where from in the world people listen to us, but even if there isn't a local, I mean, if you're in UK, you definitely get one, a spiritualist church. If you can't, then there are so many things happening online these days, demonstrations online and such. So that's also possible, and also having readings online, which maybe brings me to one last point. You don't have to go for a reading face to face, because our energy knows no boundaries. So it honestly doesn't matter. You can just find a reader in a different country if you want. You don't have to pick one that's local to you.
Yeah, that's how I work. I do all my readings online. I can do them in person. I have done, but very rarely. I don't really need to. We've got Zoom.
Yeah,
Do you
exactly.
Zoom?
Yeah, same here. Yeah, I do them online only. Although I will be attending, I think, local fairs soon, hopefully. Um,
Excellent.
so I think we've covered everything, or the most important bits anyway. If anyone has a question on the back of what we talked about today, or maybe it sparked an inspiration to ask about something different that you would like to find out, let us know, and we'll be happy to cover it in our podcast. So thank you very much for listening. Please like and subscribe as usual. That will really help our channels. And we shall catch you next time.
We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.